Yeah, I'm with the Just Transition Alliance. I lead policy there, and for me, it's quite an honor to be in the presence of such beautiful solidarity as it is displayed in this room. Solidarity is so beautiful. When we think about Just Transition, we think about the kind of inclusion that is displayed in this room. Sadly, we cannot say the same for the rooms that are negotiating on our community's behalf. For that reason, we're here to raise alarm because of the delays and the diluting of the content of this treaty that we're witnessing. We will not stand for false solutions. We will not stand for the exclusion of our groups. And we will demand an inclusive just transition. I will then turn it over to our colleagues. Go ahead.
My name is Pangunnaaq by Waghiyi. I'm the daughter of the late John and Della Waghiyi. I'm a native village Sibunga tribal citizen, a Sibuoka Yupik grandmother, and environmental health and justice director with Alaska Community Action on Toxics. For those that work tirelessly to put this together, and for those of you here that are doing all you can to ensure that we have a strong treaty.
Hola, mi nombre es Soledad Mella, soy de Chile, pertenezco a la Alianza Internacional de Recicladores y juntos a los pueblos indígenas y a los recicladores queremos empujar para que este tratado sea realmente ambicioso y sea realmente vinculante.
Hello, my name is Soledad Mella from Chile. I talk on behalf of the International Alliance of Waste Speakers, and here together with my brothers and sisters waste speakers and indigenous people, we push for a strong and binding treaty.
Una nota, Aakaluk. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Aakaluk, in English, Adrienne. I'm from Unionized, Alaska, and I am here representing Just Transition Alliance along with Indigenous Environmental Network. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your day to attend and to listen with your open hearts and open minds and take these messages from this room and share them onto the hearts of decision makers who can create an equitable treaty for all, where we can live life to its fullest without having to worry about plastic pollution and plastic colonization, not only in the world, but for future generations of those children that we yet to know their names. Dobra.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Repon Chowdhury. I'm representing the International Trade Union Confederation, which represent more than 300 million workers around the world in formal and informal economies. We are trade unions, and I'm together with my colleague Daria from Public Service International. So we are small trade union delegations attending this INC. Actually, we are following the past INCs as well to ensure that this treaty is inclusive and ensure the just transition for all workers and communities as a whole, irrespective of employment status, and it covers and it ensures that it's ensure the decent work for all, and also in the social justice and the social protection for all workers in the post treaty period. Thank you.
Dagote, Cheyenne. Good afternoon. My name is Cheyenne. I am with Society of Native Nations and representing on behalf of International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Plastics. Thank you for having us here.
Sivuoqaq is located in the northern Bering Sea. We are closer to Russia than mainland Alaska. And at one time we had 2,000 people and 32 communities. And today we have about 1,800 people in 2 communities. Just to give a brief background of the history of our struggles. During the Cold War, the Air Force established 2 formerly used defense sites on my island during the Cold War because of our proximity to Russia. We're 40 miles away. And then we are some of the most highly contaminated people on the planet because of our reliance on subsistence foods. Our Nukapik, so sacred to us. We now know the Arctic is a hemispheric sink for persistent organic pollutants. Our Nukapik is so loaded with PCBs at levels we should not be eating it for excess cancer risk. However, the important piece here is that my people still feel the benefits, outweigh the risk. It's our identity, it's our spirituality. We live in harmony with our lands, airs, and waters, and the wildlife that have sustained my people for centuries. And now, to learn that the Arctic Ocean has the most microplastics of all the oceans. Another burden we did not create. We have 4 to 10 times higher PCBs in the blood of my people than the average American in the lower 48, seeing health harms never seen before in our people. And it's so alarming that our ocean, who our people elders call our farm, the main foods my people have relied on, now have microplastics. The bowhead whale, the walrus, 4 species of seals. And it's, as a mother and grandmother, it's alarming because I'm raising a grandson. I'm a mother of 4 sons. That we're finding these microplastics in the brains of our infants. They're passed on to us in our womb. Our wombs as mothers are our children's first environment. And to learn that we're passing them on to our children. And they are found in the placenta. This is so alarming. That is why we are here to educate people of what's happening to the Arctic, because we have become a canary in the coal mine as far as the health and well-being of the global planet and Mother Earth. And I learned that from a seal analysis that there's approximately at least 234 fossil fuel and chemical industry lobbyists here that outweigh the scientists and coalitions 4 to 1. And that the number of the fossil fuel and chemical industry lobbyists is even 7 times more than our International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Plastics. That is why we are here, to educate these decision makers, to ensure that there's a treaty protective of communities like mine. And it's even more deplorable to learn that these industry and fossil fuel industries are working to weaken the treaty. We already have a long history of resource exploitation and colonization of our Arctic indigenous peoples, lands and waters, including by the fossil fuel petrochemical industry. We're a fossil fuel dependent state. And the Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the globe. So it's a crisis that we're facing. It's not a matter of if we'll get cancer. However, our children, since these toxic chemicals are endocrine disrupting chemicals, how can, if these EDCs, how can they, they can affect our children's ability to learn. How can we pass on our languages, our creation stories, our songs and dances, our traditions and cultures, if our children can't learn? And in the words of Annie Aloha, a former health aide, who started our community-based project on Sivoka, I will fight until I melt for our 7 generations. Together we are stronger.
Para los recicladores del mundo, 40 millones de ellos, hombres y mujeres,
For waste speakers of the world, 40 millions of us, men and women,
es un honor poder estar acá sentado con ustedes, con los pueblos indígenas, con las comunidades afectadas.
it's an honor to be here with the indigenous people, with the affected communities.
La verdad que nunca pensamos que hombres y mujeres que vivíamos en la oscuridad,
We,
en
ne-
los patios traseros de los vertederos y rellenos sanitarios, seríamos visibles.
we never thought that that we were living in darkness, in invisibility, in the landfills. We would be visible one day.
Hoy por primera vez tenemos la oportunidad de visibilizar mujeres y hombres que han vivido eternamente, históricamente, 4 generaciones bajo la vulneración de derechos humanos realmente inaceptables.
Here we have the opportunity for the first time to visibilize our struggle that for more than 4 generations we have been suffering.
No queremos que sientan lástima por nosotros. No queremos que nos vean como los pobres recicladores.
We don't want pity. We don't want to be seen as, the poor waste speakers.
Queremos que se den cuenta que somos consecuencia de los modelos económicos capitalistas, neoliberales, y somos consecuencia de esa pobreza que nos obligó a vivir de la basura.
We are a consequence of the economic model of capitalism, neoliberalism, and that made us live of waste.
Este es un llamado a la unidad de aquellos pueblos, de aquellas comunidades más afectadas, históricamente, patios traseros, de la basura, de los grandes imperios.
This is a call for unity for all of us, vulnerable population and communities that we have been living in the backyards of the landfills.
Yo soy hija y nieta de Mapuche, pueblo originario de mi territorio.
I'm daughter and granddaughter of Mapuche people, original community from my territory.
Un gran porcentaje de los recicladores somos indígenas.
Many of us waste speakers are indigenous people.
Por eso creemos que es tan importante hacer un llamado a todos aquellos, a nuestros aliados, a las ONG, a las instituciones, a las fundaciones, que busquemos un financiamiento que sea realmente equitativo, que llegue realmente a los más afectados y que no se sigan haciendo millonarias las instituciones y fundaciones a costa de los pueblos que sufren.
That's why we call for a financing mechanism that is just and equitable, and that the finance arrives to the vulnerable and affected communities, and foundations or NGOs don't get rich from our struggle.
La unidad de los que más sufrimos es clave en este tratado.
The unity of us who are most suffering is key in this treaty.
No podemos seguir levantando nuestros discursos alejados, dispersos. Necesitamos unir nuestro discurso y hacer uno solo, que represente a aquellos pueblos que sufren. También en nosotros está esa responsabilidad.
It's in our responsibility to get one voice, to don't get dispersed and talk with one voice together as the representative of the struggling communities.
Por eso hacemos un llamado a trabajar juntos en esta semana que queda, a no separar la fuerza, tenemos un momento histórico, un momento sumamente importante.
This is a key historical moment, so I call for the unity of all of us in this coming week.
Hemos normalizado la pobreza. Hemos normalizado las guerras.
We normalize wars, we normalize poorness.
Hoy no podemos normalizar el daño que se le ha hecho a nuestra madre tierra, a nuestra Mapuñuque, a nuestra Pachamama.
We cannot normalize all the damage that has been done to our Mother Earth, to Pachamama.
Thank you.
The light turns on.
Oh, wait. No.
Okay. For us from the trade union, we believe that solidarity and a legally binding global plastic treaty are essential to hold all countries accountable and to protect workers affected by the transition from plastic intensive industry. A just plastic treaty must explicitly recognize the rights of all workers across production to waste, with a dedicated just transition section guaranteeing safe conditions, social protection, and no exclusion from decision making, especially for vulnerable groups like women, youth, West Speaker, Indigenous. And this is a matter of dignity, social justice, and survival of millions worldwide. We need to be clear about what is the concept of just transition. As we are seeing, there is an increasing efforts to redefine by different parties in their own ways. But this is the concept that already exists for more than 10 years and already defined by ILO and endorsement by the social partners, meaning states, workers, employers, organization at the international level. This concept can be found at Paris Agreement and in the ILO guideline for just transition for a just transition towards environmental sustainable economy and society for all. So we feel that we don't need to reinvent the concept of just transition, but need to ensure legal consistency at all international and multinational instruments, including with international labor law, to which the concept of just transition belongs. So a just transition measures that workers and communities are not left behind as the world shifts to a low carbon and less plastic dependent economy. All states need to be taking responsibility for the human, labor, and social rights for their own population and for ensuring decent work and livelihood for their own workers employed in full life cycle of plastics, be them in formal and informal economy, including West Speakers, Indigenous, and other vulnerable workers, as per international commitment under the international labor law. So, states have the responsibilities to mobilize financial resources, technology, and more obligations to support fair labor practices, skill development, social protection, and decent work globally. So we, in the fifth session of the International Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee here in INC, is a crucial opportunity to embed labor and human rights protection into the treaty. The International Trade and Confederation, which represents 300 million workers, demands that the treaty must include binding just transition commitments respecting human and labor rights throughout the plastic value chains, guarantee occupational health and safety, decent work for all along supply chains, including informal and indigenous workers, provide social protection and transition pathways for affected workers, including active labor market policies, income losses, compensation mechanism, and pathways towards formalization, and ensure meaningful workers' participation, oversight of development, and implement just transition measures throughout the social dialogue and collective bargaining requires countries to provide national justization plan to measure and assess justization targets, and established a dedicated financing mechanism and with clear industrial contribution. So we feel that this approach is vital to promote environmental justice and decent growth globally. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Today I speak on behalf of the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Plastics. And first we'd like to thank our host for the invitation out here to speak and bring awareness to something that has been swept under the rug for several of these negotiations. So we stand here together. We stand here grounded in the strength of our ancestors and carrying the responsibility to the future generations. If it's not your generation that you might pass this legacy on to, it's someone that you know, your community members, your neighbor. This is everyone's responsibility. The crisis of plastics. It is a human health crisis. Plastic pollution is not just an environmental issue. This is a human rights issue. Our lands, our airs, our waters, our ice, and even our bodies are sacrificial zones. Our medicines, our food systems, our waters, languages, and cultures, they are all threatened by toxic chemicals and microplastics. We call for recognition of the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People in all aspects of this treaty. We need a treaty that is rooted in Indigenous leadership and fully upholds our rights affirmed in the UN Declaration and ILO Convention 169. These are not optional guidelines. These are binding international standards that must shape the foundation of this treaty. As the UN Secretary General stated in April of this year, our rights are non-negotiable. To that end, this treaty must embed the rights of Indigenous people, not as a token gesture, but as a core principle throughout this treaty. Respect our dignity, identity. Do not conflate Indigenous peoples with other stakeholder groups. We are right holders, not just stakeholders. Uphold our self-determination. Ensure full, equitable, and informed participation of Indigenous peoples at every stage of this treaty process. Address the full cycle of plastics, even from extraction to disposal, not just the end stages of waste management. So we offer this. Remember, rise. We rise. Rise of the framework. Our rights. Embedded our rights in all aspects of this treaty. I, identify, recognize us as distinct right holders. S, self-determination. Guarantee our full and equitable participation. E, ensure the treaty addresses the full life cycle of plastics, starting at extraction and production. We carry the solutions rooted in generations of ancestral knowledge. We are stewards of these lands, yet despite this, we are being disproportionately harmed by the productions of plastic beginning with extraction. We are here, we are organized, and we are ready to lead a just and equitable transition with respect to our rights, honor our knowledge, and protect the earth we all depend on. It's no coincidence that these negotiations fall on the International Day of World Indigenous Peoples. We are not here as an afterthought. We are here as the original stewards of this planet, present, unyielding, and resolute. Our ancestors are behind us. Our future generations stand before us. And the earth herself is watching. The time is now. The world will remember which side you stood on. Rise with us and build a treaty that ensures a future where no community is sacrificed for the sake of profit. Thank you.
Before I get started, I want to ask all of you to take a moment and close your eyes and imagine your sanctuary, that safe place that you go to escape, to breathe the air, to feel the earth beneath your feet, to listen to the water run, to escape the noises of the city, the smells, the pollution, the chaos, the places where you go to let your hearts release the things that no longer serve you. Take a deep breath in and let it go. Like Bai, I come from a small village of 750 people on the northwest coast of Alaska, located on the heart of the Norton Sound. Often referred to as the passage to the Arctic, it is a once pristine ecosystem where plastic pollution has become a crisis, not only on the land, waters, and in the atmosphere, but in our people. On top of that, health, excuse me. On top of the health issues shared by Bai, we also see mental health issues, not only from toxic chemical exposure, but also the vast climate change impacts that made life more of a struggle for our people who rely on what the land provides for us to thrive in one of the harshest, unforgiving places in the world. Danger lurks everywhere, on the ice, on the land, in the sinking and eroding places that we've always known, on our fresh waters, our oceans that are now gasping for relief, a place where our traditional ecological knowledge has taken a shift and we have had to evaluate how we tell the weather patterns through the sky, rising tides, bird and animal migrations, and growth seasons. As Inuit, we have an inherent and symbiotic relationship with the world, with what it provides. Since time immemorial, we have left little to no carbon footprint and stewarded our homes with love and care. Over my short life here, we see our plant, animal, and bird relatives poisoned due to the hemispheric sinkhole of massive toxic exposure that Bai had mentioned in the beginning of this dialogue. In Indigenous communities worldwide, industrial man camps brought by way of extractive industry heightens the number of missing and murdered Indigenous relatives. From the beginning of production and the end of life where plastic waste can only grow and poison us all, we are impacted in many more than ways than I can share in just a few minutes. It is in this moment we have come together again as people of the world to make a collective decision about how to handle this crisis. And it is time we all realize that this is a global human rights problem, not individual parties, not corporate or political campaigns to win over, but life as we know for all is threatened if we don't just do the right thing. We must put an end to plastic and the petrochemical industry and move to an Indigenous-led just transition. We demand financial mechanisms that provide direct access funding to Indigenous peoples and impacted communities while using restorative practices, eliminating plastic credits and false solutions. Maybe this is a little off the radar of the conversations that we're focusing on here, but I wanted to take a short moment and share some of the lessons, the life lessons that I continue to live by for my children to emulate, that maybe you all need reminders as decision makers to move forward to create an equitable treaty that serves all of the world. Love and care not only for yourself, but also for your neighbors. Just be good relatives. Clean up after yourself. Make sure your home is ready for the next family to make memories and continue a legacy of love and sharing light. Help where you can, and see is needed. Integrity is doing the right thing when no one else is watching. Money can't buy everything, and it certainly can't follow us to the other side of the veil. Take a moment and look at the beauty beyond. Be bold and be brave. And sometimes doing the right thing means we will lose more than we can gain, but you'll be able to sleep better and enjoy life at the end of the day. Once again, Cleanna, for taking time out of your day and your busy schedule, taking time away from your homes, your family, your communities, and traveling to a foreign place where life is so jumbled and chaotic and where we're trying to come together and see a future for our children, of those we don't even know the names yet. Thank you, Deborah.
I want to thank our fellow panelists for the trust and the solidarity that we've been building now for many periods, coming back here to these tables. We want to be clear that this negotiation is a failure of a just transition, and it does not have to look like that. This is not a time to be relitigating rights that are already enshrined in international law, like the collective rights of Indigenous peoples, the rights of workers, the rights of work speakers. This is not a time to continue the traditions of exclusion. It is a time to make polluters pay, to end false solutions, and to bring about real solutions. Nature must not continue to be commodified and financialized. We demand non-market-based approaches to funding that are direct, that are grant-based, that don't create new debt burdens on already burdened and marginalized communities, and that provide direct access to the groups in this table. Direct access. To those that are undermining this process, please know that we are watching, and remember, this is who you are accountable to, not industry. And with that, we'll open this floor to questions.
I had a couple of questions for Aakaluk and Bai. I wanted to know why it's important to make explicit mentions of the unique vulnerabilities of the Arctic and Indigenous peoples of the Arctic. And also, what is the difference between Indigenous rights and human rights?
It's alarming to learn that the Arctic has the most microplastics of all the oceans. Our elders call our ocean our farm. It has sustained my people for millennia. My people continue to live out the land and ocean. We harvest bowhead whales, walrus and seals, and to learn that they are our main food are walrus and seals during our long winters, are loaded with microplastics. We are already facing legacy military toxics, persistent organic pollutants, and now microplastics. These are burdens we didn't create. We need to phase out the 16,000 harmful chemicals found in plastics production. It is so important that when we leave this room and go speak to the delegates of what you heard today, because as I mentioned, the Arctic has now become an indicator of the health of Mother Earth. What we are doing to Mother Earth is unethical. We are facing health harms never seen before in our people. I'm a cancer survivor. I've had 3 miscarriages. I just lost a relative yesterday, and my niece is having health complications, reproductive health complications. Her child is only 27 weeks old. These are illnesses we are facing in our communities. It's not a matter of if we'll get cancer or birth defects or strokes, heart disease, mental health harms. My passion now has become mental health harms that we're seeing more and more linked to toxic exposures. I had to make sure that my niece was placed in a facility because she tried to commit suicide in my home watching my grandson, who's 6 years old. This is the reality of our life. At one time, we only took what we needed, whether it was from the wildlife my people have relied on. At one time, when our men and hunters went out to harvest and hunt, we made sure that every blade of grass had no blood. Due to the respect of the wildlife my people have relied on to ensure that we respect them and that they return. We have only taken what we need and used everything. So we are calling on the nations and countries, that the decision makers, to think about what we are sharing in these rooms. It's not a matter of these treaties are driven by industry and chemical corporations who are driven by greed and profit, and do not take public health into account, including the mental health of our people. Illnesses never seen before in our people. Can you imagine facing ecological grief? Watching our lands, airs, and waters devastated? The food security we're facing. Once again, we did not have adequate hunting. If there's no ice, our freezers and meat racks are empty. Once again this spring, we did not have adequate hunting of the marine mammals that have sustained my people. So it's important that we take what you heard here, and bring it to the delegates and decision makers, because we are not even heard in the contact groups. I've been to Geneva Skier 5 times for the Stockholm Convention. We're able to make interventions in these contact groups. We're being silenced. Thank you.
I want to, before taking another question, let everybody know that our media advisory has the contact information for folks to ask questions and for other inquiries, and we will be available for questions after the conference as well. Other questions?
That was a 2-part question. It's Fernando.
Oh, pardon me. Please go ahead.
Is it on? Yeah. There you go. I can reflect on
Please, of course, go ahead.
Thank you, Vi, for that beautiful. That was solid ground. That really wraps what we're trying to make enforced into closed-minded states, shall I say? But referencing the difference between human health rights and Indigenous peoples' rights, their human health rights applies universally, and it affirms that all people have the right to the highest attainable standard of health. But for Indigenous people, health cannot be separated from land, water, culture, or self-determination. UNDRIP affirms that we are distinctive right holders, not stakeholders, and with the right to maintain our spiritual and material relationships within our territories, to govern our own health systems, and to give or withhold free, prior, and informed consent over activities that affect our well-being. Mm-hmm. So there is a distinctive difference, and that is why it's essential to have that noted, written in this treaty, specifically at the preamble. I hope that answered your question.
Hello, thank you. My name is Tiana with Environmental Justice Communities Against Plastics. I have a question for Cheyenne. What concerns do you have about bad faith participation, industry involvement in the negotiations? Thank you.
Well, I hope y'all don't get tired of my voice. That's a perfect question to elaborate on exactly what we just spoke about, the difference between Indigenous peoples' rights and human health rights. Specifically, we have a well-documented history of promises and broken promises. And we've seen that if these words are not documented on written texts, such as treaties as this, that there will be no guarantee to affirm our rights independently, to self-govern, to maintain our culture, our connection with our earth, our lands, our waters, our languages. And bad faith, unfortunately, happens more time at the cost of Indigenous people, at the cost of people of color, at the cost of communities that have been displaced. So these bad faith actors are looking for loopholes. And the way to close that loophole is to make sure it's written right smack in the front of that text. Have that inclusion of ensuring UNDRIP is upheld, ILO 169 is upheld. Have that within that standard and make it Indigenous led, because if not, then there is no meaningful consent and consultation. There is none. It is just a simple check mark for these bad faith actors who are trying to find a loophole on how to exclude us by including us in these dialogues as observers, not as right holders. Thank you.
Why is it important that it's not just a waste figure, just transition?
For Soledad, why is it important that it's not just a waste picker, just transition?
Turn off.
We need to turn off that mic. There's
Somebody's
another one
mic is on.
halfway through. Yeah.
Can you turn it off?
Your mic, right there.
Pablo. Oh, yeah.
Voy a contestar muy breve y muy simple. Creemos que somos parte y de dentro de nuestra organización tenemos pueblos indígenas, tenemos comunidades afectadas y tenemos trabajadores afectados. Por ende, creemos que la transición justa no solamente debe mencionar a los recicladores de base, sino a todas las comunidades que son afectadas.
I'm going to be very brief and simple. Our organization includes indigenous people, includes affected communities, affected workers. So for us, we cannot work alone. We have to go all together.
Somos parte de todo ese grupo que tratan de dividirlo y fraccionarlos.
They try to divide us and to fractionate us.
Creemos fundamental que no podemos dejar que nos sigan quitando lo que nos han quitado toda la vida.
We cannot let them continue to take away from us what they've been doing for generations.
Transición justa no es negociable.
The just transition is not negotiable.
Financiamiento justo no es negociable.
The just financing is not negotiable.
Por eso debemos unir las voces para defenderlo. Enfrentar a las naciones, a los países que están tratando de bloquear el concepto de transición justa en todo el tratado.
So we have to unite our voices to fight against these countries that are trying to block the just transition in all the treaty.
Llamar a todos los países a que digan que es una línea roja que no es negociable.
And to call to all the countries and member states to say that this is a red flag, a red line that is not negotiable.
Los quiero llamar a todos ustedes. Yo soy mapuche y nosotros tenemos un grito de guerra, un grito de fuerza, de energía. Y los quiero convocar a hacer eso conmigo ahora aquí.
I call upon all of you. I'm a Mapuche woman, and we have a power call that I'm going to invite you to do with me now.
En nuestro idioma se le llama afafán.
Afafan.
Voy a comenzar yo y ustedes repiten conmigo.
So you repeat what I say.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Woo-hoo.
Yeah!
Yeah, 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 yeah. Woo-hoo. Yeah, 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 yeah. Woo-hoo. Mari Chihuahua, Mari Chihuahua, Mari Chihuahua.
Mari Chihuahua, Mari Chihuahua, Mari Chihuahua.
10 veces venceremos, 10 veces venceremos, 10 veces venceremos.
10 veces venceremos.
Win 10 times, we will win 10 times.
10 times we will win.
We haven't been kicked out yet, so we have other questions.
The question is, why is it so crucial for developed countries to take responsibility for the just transition, including the finances, technology transfer, well beyond its borders? And this question is for Repon. Thank you.
So we, as I said in deliberations, that this is the treaty we are negotiating, and we are expecting that the treaty must deliver so that states can take the full responsibility for implementation of the liabilities and the implementation process through national action program. So there is an increasing need for collaboration and cooperation between the developed and developing countries, particularly in terms of the financial contribution to the financial mechanisms for those the country who are underdeveloped and need for financial support for the implementation of this treaty. So the plastic pollution is a global problem, so it needs to be globally solved, and therefore the international collaboration is needed. And we feel that this collaboration must go in hand to hand, not only to the developed countries to participate, but also developing countries to collaborate and achieve together the full goal of the plastic treaty that we are expecting for. Therefore, we need a solid ground and solid commitment to deliver this treaty. Therefore, a solid international collaborations in developed and developing countries for the full implementation that guarantees the just transition for all workers and communities and all vulnerable groups in a post-treaty plastic economy. Thank you.
Hi, my question is for Soledad. We hear a lot in the past few days about how governments and NGOs want to build capacity of the informal sector. But my question is, what should governments and NGOs be doing to learn from the expertise of waste pickers themselves?
En Chile teníamos un dirigente que se llamaba Ezequiel Stein, que murió de un cáncer terminal.
In Chile, we have a leader who died of a terminal cancer, Ezequiel Stein.
Que murió de un cáncer, sí. Y él decía que los recicladores de base en el mundo tenemos algo que no tiene ninguna industria, ninguna empresa, ningún empresario multimillonario.
And he used to say that as waste pickers, we have something that not the industry, no billionaire has.
El recurso humano.
The human resource.
40 millones de recicladores en el mundo. Nos hemos hecho cargo de evitar a través de la última frontera que esta contaminación por plástico no afecte de la forma que ha ido afectando a millones de comunidades.
As waste pickers, we managed for generations, we were the last frontier, and we managed to reduce plastic pollution.
Sin pago alguno.
With no payment for our service.
Por el valor del material.
For what the material was worth.
Un pago miserable.
A miserable price.
Por eso creemos importante que si aquí en este espacio está la industria participando de este evento.
So if the industry is participating in these negotiations,
deben, por moral,
so they need, for ethical reasons,
por derechos humanos,
for human rights,
por derechos sociales,
social rights,
asumir su responsabilidad,
assume and take responsibility of their responsibility,
y empezar a mirar y a comprender y a involucrar en todas las políticas de país y en negociaciones a los grupos más vulnerados, pueblos indígenas, recicladores y comunidades afectadas.
They need to be looking at us, getting us involved in all the processes from start to finish, us vulnerable communities, indigenous people, waste pickers.
Es importante que la industria, la empresa, las ONG, las fundaciones, las instituciones no olviden por qué son creadas, para qué están y cuál es su deber y cuál es su obligación. No podemos seguir siendo nosotros los más afectados, los que nunca recibimos lo que tenemos que recibir. Derechos humanos, derechos sociales, viviendas dignas, formas de trabajo dignas.
So it's important that the states, the businesses, the industry, the NGOs don't forget that we need to get our rights as vulnerable people who are getting the most impact of this pollution and greed. So they have to take us into account in all the processes.
Eso, gracias.
Thank you.
To Vi and Adrienne, I wanted to commend you for mentioning the impacts of the Plastics Treaty and how it relates to climate change, as that's a phrase we don't hear here at the Plastics Treaty. And I wanted to ask, with your communities relying on subsistence fishing and those populations dwindling, what is the alternative? What is the unaffordable cost that communities have to pay out of their pocket that they don't have resources for?
There is no alternative. In the community I come from right now, my sister went to the store the other day to buy a pack of chicken thighs. It was $76. Frozen, shipped from Lord knows where, and been in the freezer for months. Those are not sustainable foods for us. We've seen many foods that have been introduced to us we call commodity foods during times of famine, during times of militarization and colonization of our lands that continue to cause health harms. And we continue to work through releasing ourselves of those foods and unhealthy products that we've relied on, and go back to embracing more of our traditional ways. But through this climate change and through the vast changes in our waters, ocean, and lands due to plastic pollution, the petrochemical industry, and colonization throughout the world, we're seeing that it's harder and harder to be able to maintain not only our food security, but also our identity as Indigenous people, because without the food and what the land provides, we can't survive. There is no us. Yeah, if I could, before we get finished today, if I could just offer a couple of moments of time if any of our other comrades that have joined us today would like to share or make a statement before we get closed, or before we have any more other questions on the floor.
Hi, my name's Teresa. I'm part of the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Plastics. I want someone from the panel to give us some hope. What are our opportunities? I know things aren't going exactly how we wish they would, but what's next? What are we looking forward to? What are we looking forward to?
Remember in the beginning where we took that deep breath, closed our eyes, and looked at our sanctuary, our place of peace, our place of hope, our place of love and security? Those are the things that we're looking for. Those are the things that we're working for to achieve. And we can only do that through collaboration of Indigenous-led just transition. I can't emphasize that enough. And also reaching for traditional ecological knowledge and pathways to be able to do that. to be able to attain the highest health of the world. Remember that if we were all to disappear today, that the earth would thrive. So we need to keep that in the back of our minds as we continue to reach for a better future for us all. And we're seeing many projects throughout our Indigenous communities that are embracing farming and harvesting and food production, protection of our lands, our waterways, resurrection of some of our even salmon runs in the waters that have been blocked by dams. We see this when we allow Indigenous peoples to take the forefront of these changes and this transition in breaking away from this petrochemical industry. And we'll continue to stand up and continue to fight, and we'll continue to hold the line because our bodies are born on the line. So, with that being said, we wake up every day with that hope of a brighter future and a better tomorrow, and we continue to spread those stories of creation and love within our communities, and that ripples throughout the world. You see it every day when you come in contact with our communities, with our people, and with the elders and the children, and that intergenerational time that we share together within our homes, and that spreads throughout. I hope that's just a little bit of hope that I can give you guys today as you leave this place, and continue to keep that in mind as you make decisions and as you share messages and as you pressure decision makers to do that, just that.
If I may add, for us in the Just Transition Alliance, our hopes are for compensation, for repair, for a harmonious relationship with Mother Earth. Just Transitions are our visions for hope, and we acknowledge that there are no one-size-fits-all approaches, that Just Transition looks differently for different groups. And our hopes are born out of solidarity between workers, communities, Indigenous peoples. We carry that forward.
With all the health impacts that you have spoken, and also talking about the just transition, how should we envision the transition world should be to accommodate the health impacts that we have had so far? So already, the health burden as well as the economic burden to take care of our health is there on us. So how should we envision that? So do we envision that?
What were you asking?
First, do no harm. Take precautionary principle into account in all these rooms. And because as Indigenous people, we think 7 generations, and we saw our lands, airs, and waters before the exploitation of multinational corporations and industries that come into our communities. I never knew there was so much injustice globally. I was a stay-at-home mom. I started this work 22 years ago. And since we saw our lands, airs, and waters before the assault from these toxic chemicals, whether it's legacy military toxics in my community or the persistent organic pollutants and now microplastics, we have solutions. We've heard over and over on this from these panel members, our Indigenous people's knowledge, which is on par or greater than Western science. We should be in these rooms because we have solutions. And whether it's to address all that I just mentioned, but also it's so important that we incorporate our knowledge, the UNDRIP, and all the others that we heard about from these panel members. And, we have remedies that we produce this Arctic Plastics Crisis Report, Toxic Threats to Health, Human Rights, and Indigenous Lands from the Petrochemical Industry to inform the delegates at INC-4. We do have this available on our website. It's www.akaction.org. We want to find ways to work with the delegates to make sure that our children and future generations have a right to clean air, clean water, and toxic-free food. And we come to these over and over. Our dignity, our basic human rights are being violated. And I have to go home and recover. I've been doing this for 22 years. It's so personal. And but we suit up and show up and stand up.
Thank you. I was actually going to give by the last word, but we will be here and open to any other questions and inquiries that may come. Thank you all, and thank you to our panelists.
Also, one last thing I want to say before we close this and everybody leaves the room. We're not all liberated until we are all free. Free Palestine and stop the bombing in Gaza.
Thank you everybody for joining my live stream. Mom, I will definitely talk to my friend Aakaluk and my friend Bai and send them your best. Chimigwech for the stars. Super appreciate it. I've been crying through this whole panel, so I'm a little snotty and puffy-eyed. Chimigwech, and I'll keep you posted on everything that's happening here in Geneva at the Plastics Treaty, the Global Plastics Treaty negotiations. Chimigwech, I'll give you a show of my friends right now. My brave warriors, my friends, comrades, and allies. And just understand that all around the world, Indigenous people in the 7 regions are fighting for the same right to free, prior, informed consent, to have our rights as Indigenous peoples
Solidarity!
recognized in this global treaty negotiation space. We are back at the space where our relatives in the 70s were denied access to. And the fight for our rights has been ongoing since contact. Chimigwech, everybody. I'll keep you posted. And just remember, I'm 6 hours ahead of you. So bye for now.